Hello everyone, I'm Shell Black, President and founder of ShellBlack.com and Salesforce MVP. And this episode is almost a most requested episode. It's custom objects, something you gave me feedback on Twitter and email that you wanted me to cover. So with that, let's jump into it. So let's talk about first, what is a custom object? So a custom object is a new table in the database you can store information. And when you're considering a custom object or something that you want to record in the database, you should probably look at first to see if it's a fit for your standard object. So if it's a person, should that be a lead or a contact? If it's something with a physical address or a business entity, should that be an account? If I'm looking at a potential revenue opportunity, should that be an opportunity? But sometimes something that you want to track in the database is not a good fit for a standard object. It's something else. And when you have something else, that's a good candidate for a custom object. So a couple of examples. So you might have a job application or a survey, an expense report, a time card, a project, a vacation request, a loan, or an insurance policy. None of those things that I just talked about are a good fit for a standard object. It's something else. And if you think about a custom object, you can think of it in terms of an Excel workbook. And I'm sure Salesforce probably cringes when I say think of Salesforce and Excel workbook, but I think it's a fairly good analogy. If you think of a workbook in Excel and you have a tab for all your standard objects, a lead tab, accounts, contacts, opportunities, cases, whatever it might be, when you create a net new tab or worksheet in a workbook, that's almost the same thing that you're doing in Salesforce. You're extending the database by adding another worksheet or another table in the database. So when you create a custom object, you have all the features available that you have with standard objects. So you have things like page layouts, custom fields, security if you need to hide or restrict access to that custom object, all the way down to field level security, reporting, activities, you can have attachments, you can have chatter, you can write cross-object formulas, which is really handy, workflow, validation rules. Pretty much all the features that you have available with a standard object are available with custom objects. Okay, let's flip sides of the board real quick. How do you tie a custom object to other tables in the Salesforce database? And you do that with a lookup field. You have a lookup field is a way you can make a connection to another table. So let's say that you have a survey object that you've created with all your fields that you have on your survey, but you want to relate or tie that survey custom object to a contact. You would do that through a lookup field to the contact object. When you have lookup fields, you now have data relationships that you need to be thinking about in the database. These are going to be separate episodes in more depth, but I'm going to give you some quick highlights. So let's take that example I was just talking about with the survey custom object with a lookup field to the contact. That's a one-to-many relationship. One contact can have multiple surveys. So you might have a survey they took this week, next week, 3 weeks from now, whatever it might be, but you can have multiple records associated to a single object in a one-to-many relationship. In that separate episode, we're also going to talk about master detail relationships where we can roll up or summarize information from child records. Not going to get into that today. The other thing you can do is a many-to-many relationship. So when you have two lookup relationships on an object, let's say that you have a job application. So a job application can be related one way to the job posting or the position. It can also have a lookup relationship based to the contact. So now you have a many-to-many relationship. So one contact can have multiple job applications against multiple job postings. And kind of conversely, one job posting, you can see all the contacts that have applied for that job position. So we've kind of basically made a join object. So that job application is a join between the contact object and the job position. Again, we're going to do another example, another episode, more in depth to make that more concrete. But just realize when you have two lookup relationships, you can have a many-to-many relationship. When you create a custom object, you can also create a tab. You can give it an icon. So maybe it's an expense report. You can give a little airplane icon or the globe. And then if you have a tab for your custom object, that can be included into an app or a custom app. We're going to have another episode on custom apps, so just realize that's an option. Something you need to know is that you have limits based on your license type with Salesforce on how many custom objects you can create. So if you have Professional Edition, which I'm abbreviating with PE, you can have up to 50 custom objects. With Enterprise Edition, EE, you can have 200. Unlimited, or the Performance Edition, you can have 400 custom objects. Developer, 400 custom objects. If you have a Force.com license, you can have 10. And I put an asterisk on the Force.com license because there's actually some older versions of the Force.com license that allow for more than that. Okay, so that wraps up our episode on custom objects. I hope you enjoyed that. You can give some feedback on how we're doing a couple different ways. You can hit us on Twitter. I'm at @shell_black, or you can send us an email, whiteboard@shellblack.com. We would love to hear from you. Stay tuned for some new episodes and hope to see you soon.